If you have a Mavic 2 Pro and you want this, let me know in the comments below. And you kind of like boop, 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 and do some shooting with it. In theory, it makes sense and it should work, but in practice, yeah, this is the handheld gimbal holder for the Mavic Pro. Already, I'm probably not really expecting too much. It is actually different to what was on the outside of the box. I'm also not sure exactly what this is for, but honestly, like I'm not. So I paid 35 Australian dollars for it, so I wasn't expecting too much. You can obviously buy stuff that's a lot more expensive. I think the proper ones are about 100 and 120 bucks, so not that impressed by it when I first saw it. But I mean, like, it's, I don't know, like, the thing that got me about it is that there's these like little screws and nuts in here that just aren't connected to anything. So I've actually gone and hot glued them in there so they don't come out when I actually take this off to put the drone in here. It's cheap, like, let's just put it that way. Basically, the idea is that obviously we need to take the props off, take this and put this thing underneath. It's just cheap. Like, if you're actually thinking about using this, then definitely get a proper one. Don't cheap out like me. Why are you just so bad? Alright, then it basically looks like this. So you have the drone kind of with these handles on the side, and then obviously you take this off and you set it up, and you've got the gimbal here. So it's basically like having a camera with a gimbal, and then obviously you put your controller in there like that, and then you put your phone here so you can see, and then you can kind of adjust it. But essentially, like, that's the rig, that's the setup. In theory, it makes sense and it should work. I don't know. I'm not expecting too much, but let's go out and do some shooting and see what we can come up with. So after shooting with this and checking out the footage, it's actually not that bad at all. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a freaking butt ton of things that are wrong with this and make it hard to use, but I guess overall it actually serves its purpose of creating smooth handheld footage. Now again, this thing is super cheaply made. This controller lock thing doesn't actually lock down, so it just swings around like this, and when you're shooting, the controller is just like freaking swinging all over the place. And I was limited to using just my phone on my iPad because the mount I have basically goes in the same spot as this goes. So that was a bit annoying because I love using my iPad when I'm flying my drone. Now, at the end of the day, you have to remember that you are still shooting with a drone. So the drone is meant to be in the sky, not on the ground in your hands. So the ergonomics of shooting with this thing are not that great. Now, the main thing I faced is that you are severely limited with what you can actually do with the thing. Like, if you just want to get some super smooth, stable shots of like a landscape or something basic, like basic camera moves, then this will work. And I guess you have to think of it like a drone. Like, what kind of shots would you be getting with your drone, and then just translate to doing that on the ground, I guess. And like, hats off to DJI, because their stabilization algorithm is like top notch, one of the best on the market. So that helps a lot when you're using this, because you can literally go like this all over the place, and the camera stays pretty much perfectly still because of their smoothing algorithm. Now, one of the things I wanted to try was to actually do a tilt up while kind of like moving around, and it can be done. I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing to do, but it can be done. Because obviously the drone wants to keep the camera perfectly level unless you basically tilt it with the controller or use the screen. You have to basically have like one hand on here and one hand on the controller trying to do the tilt or like touching on the screen. And it just makes it so hard to use. Yeah, it can be done. Like, here's a shot of it, but it's not the easiest thing to do. I did find, however, that if you hold your finger on the screen, you can manually move the gimbal, and this seems to work way better and yield way smoother results. But if you do this, then when you finish, the gimbal can sometimes be like it'll just be like 45 degrees that way, and then you have to kind of like hold it on the screen and try to bring it back, and it's real hard to get it resetted. I guess you can go into the menus and actually recenter it yourself, but it's a pretty tedious task just to get like a tilt-up shot. Now the focus on the Mavic 2 Pro is great, but it's just ridiculously slow because there's no like autofocus setting. It means you have to kind of like focus every time you want to do something, and it does take a little bit of time. Obviously, once it does grab focus, it's fine, but you have to keep this in mind if you are going to shoot this way, because obviously if you're moving from close subject to far away subjects, then you want to be focusing every time. So just keep that in mind too, because again, if you don't refocus, then you're going to have all out of focus shots, and nobody likes that. Now, while we are on focus, because the Mavic 2 Pro has that amazing 1-inch sensor, it means that we can actually get depth of field, and we can actually adjust the aperture as well. So I wanted to test that out. As you can see in this shot, I try to pull focus from the plant to the pigeons, but man, is it tough to hit focus when you're just looking at your iPhone screen. Like, I tried it so many times, and I think every single time I overshot it. And you also try to like do the little swipe down to focus, it's not fun to do at all. So even though you can manually pull focus on this, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Now, if you are wanting to shoot like facing upwards or tilting upwards, it can be done, but again, it's not that easy. The first thing you need to do is obviously turn on the extended tilt range so you can actually tilt up past 0 degrees. And then there's this weird thing that even if you tilt all the way up, the drone will like, it's so hard to explain. Usually on a gimbal, basically you can tilt up like this and obviously follow up, but because the drone wants to keep it level, if you do this, it'll just obviously keep it level till it gets to a point where it can't anymore, and then just does this weird like flick, like look at this, it does this weird flick up, and it just like ruins your shot. So you have to be very careful. So if you are gonna do it, just make sure that you're not tilting too far up, and then just kind of like stay in that same area. Don't try to do this too much because it doesn't really work. Now, at the end of the day, I would never actually use this on a shoot. It's just way too hard to set up, way too hard to use to get some basically simple shots. But who this would be perfect for is like a real estate agent or someone who shoots housing or like real estate. It would be perfect for them because basically if you have a Mavic 2 Pro and you're wanting to shoot aerials and interiors, you don't have to go and buy another camera. You don't have to go buy a gimbal to get these shots. You can literally just take the camera or the drone that you've already got, chuck it in here, and then you can get these interior shots as well. And typically when you're shooting real estate, the shots are quite simple. Like they usually just like walk forwards, a nice smooth, slow movement. So this would actually work really good. Like there's no focus changing. There's typically no tilt ups or anything, but again, you can do it if you have the time. And remember, like the Mavic 2 Pro produces a freaking amazing image. So if you're already getting amazing aerials, then why not bring it inside and use it as well? But like, let me know what you guys think. Like, do you think the footage turned out alright? Is this something that you would use? Like, if you actually, if you have a Mavic 2 Pro and you want this, let me know in the comments below why you want it, and I'll pick one winner to get this, because like, I'm not gonna use it. Like, I've got my good camera, I don't need this. I just wanted to test it out and see if it actually worked or not. And if you did enjoy this video, then consider liking and subscribing. And if you want to find out more about this, again, I'll leave some links down below. You know where to find them. But as always, guys, stay creative and just be you.